Hello and welcome back to the Project Management PrepCast. We're the exam preparation course that removes all the fears you may have around the exam. I'm your instructor, Cornelius Fichtner. In this lesson, we take a look at the dreaded exam audit and show you, well, it's not really all that bad. We talk about understanding the audit process, why PMI performs these audits, how to best prepare for a possible audit, and as a result of all of this, you realize that yes, there is a 50-50 chance that you might get audited, but with preparation, there's really nothing to worry about. First of all, to learn more about audits, begin by reading the certification handbook. The image you see here is the front cover of the PMP handbook. But of course, if you are preparing for a different PMI certification, then you should read that certification-specific handbook. In particular, look for the section about the PMI audit process and read through it. It's really rather straightforward, and even though this lesson here gives you all the information you need to know, I still recommend that you read that section in your handbook on your own after you're done watching. I'd also like to mention that if at the end of this lesson you still have any questions about the audit process, then please go to the PMI website where you find an extensive FAQ in the certification section. At the time of this recording here, PMI had about 50 questions and answers over there, and 20 of them were specific to the audit process. The fastest way really to find this FAQ is by searching for the words PMI Audit FAQ in your favorite internet search engine, and it'll take you straight to it. Before we get into any of the audit details, you need to understand that when you sign up for any PMI exam, you agree that your application may get audited. Therefore, you want to fill out your application truthfully and honestly, because if your application contains nothing but the truth, well, then you have nothing to fear from the audit. It's just another step in the process. So, by applying to take a PMI exam, you automatically agree to comply with the PMI audit terms. PMI routinely conducts audits of candidate applications to ensure that only qualified individuals attain their credentials. From the Credentials Handbook, we learn the following about audits. All applications are subject to audit, although only a limited percentage of applications are in fact selected and actually audited. The selection of an application for audit is random. PMI can audit you at any time, including after you have already obtained your certification. However, chances of being audited are lower once you pass the exam. I also want to make you aware that over the years we have seen an increase in the number of audits that PMI has conducted. Therefore, one piece of advice: be prepared. Plan with the expectation that you will get audited. But the more important question is, of course, why does PMI have audits at all? Well, that's simple. PMI conducts audits to confirm the experience and the education that exam candidates have documented on their credential applications. The purpose of the audit is also to enhance the credibility of the certification program and the credential holders. So in essence, the audits ensure that only qualified individuals apply for and attain PMI credentials. The result of this process is part of what gives PMI certifications added value and worldwide credibility. You and every PMI certified professional deserves to know that your hard-fought certification retains its value and integrity year in and year out. PMI takes this responsibility very seriously, and so should you. At least once every month I come across a message in a news group or forum that claims that PMI application audits are not random. A friend of a friend of mine told me that PMI looks at your application and based on the profile, you get audited. Well, these are worthless speculations because audits are seriously a random affair. I say this because, according to PMI, all audits are random. That is all that we are told officially, and any sort of audit profiling that you can imagine, like application gaps, types of projects, type of education, or even the fact that you have red hair, are pure speculation. And frankly, these kind of speculations don't help anyone, particularly you. So don't worry, you either get audited or you do not get audited, period. So instead of worrying, you should know how the audit process works. You should be prepared for the possibility of an audit. And in the event that your application is indeed selected for an audit, you know what instructions from PMI to follow and how to respond. So why don't we look at the actual audit process? The process is relatively straightforward, but we've split it up over several slides so it's easier to follow along. Here we go. If you are selected for an audit, then you receive an email from PMI about this. The email contains detailed instructions on what you have to do. And once you are being audited, then the clock stops. By this, I mean that normally you have 1 year following your application to take the exam. But during the audit, this clock stops and does not continue until after your audit has been processed. So if, for example, your audit takes 6 weeks, then you have 1 year and 6 weeks to take the exam from the original submission date of your application. In other words, being audited does not take away from your 1 year period during which you can take the exam. After you get the info about being audited, you would log into your account on the PMI.org website. In your account, you find the audit package waiting for you. This package contains all the details that you have submitted in your application. It also contains audit instructions that you have to read and then follow carefully. Now comes the moment when your information has to be verified and approved by a group of specific people. In your application, you provided contact persons for each of your project, and it is now up to them to review and approve. So, you have to access and download the package and then forward the appropriate section of the package to each of your contact persons. If you have 3 contact persons, then you have to send the correct section to each of them. Then your contacts have to verify that all the information in your package is correct. Following that, they have to sign it and put it in a sealed envelope and then put another signature across the sealed back of the envelope. Yes, PMI is very serious about this signature across the flap requirement. In fact, I have an example for you. One of the people who works with me put me down on his PMI ACP exam application as one of his contact persons. And of course he got audited. What you see here is the yellow manila envelope that contains the audit package that I had to sign and send back to him. And as you can see, I even went a step further. If you look closely at this image, you will see that in order to really seal the envelope, I put Scotch tape over the flap and then I signed everything over the Scotch tape and over the flap. Needless to say that he passed his audit with flying colors. Now back to the process. When you return things to PMI, in most cases you have to include photocopies of the certificates that you received. For example, include a certificate to show that you have received 35 contact hours of training. Also include your sealed envelopes and copies of your school diplomas to PMI for review. To avoid possible delays in processing your audit, PMI requests that you send all these materials at one time in one shipment. It's important to realize at this point you have the power to expedite the audit process. The sooner you respond, the sooner it is processed. PMI usually is rather quick in processing your audit documents after you send them in. And then, of course, PMI informs you of their decision of the audit via email. Here are some more important points about returning the audit documents to PMI. The good news for everyone is that the experience verification forms do not have to be notarized. So once you have everything ready, you can simply send your completed audit forms by regular postal mail or express courier service back to PMI. PMI does not accept faxed or emailed audit documents. PMI also doesn't accept an email signature. So you cannot send an email to your contact person and then print out their email response and send that back as confirmation. They have to physically sign the forms in sealed envelopes by hand, just like you saw in my example. Again, please send all materials at one time in one envelope to expedite the processing time. If you provide all the necessary documentation, the audit should take about 5 to 7 business days to complete, but I've seen it done within 2 to 4 days in some cases. If it gives you peace of mind, consider a mailing method where you are able to track the package from you to PMI or have proof of receipt. It'll cost you a bit more, but may put your mind at ease. If you are really unlucky and you fail the audit, then here is what happens. PMI refunds the credential fee minus a processing fee to you. Your application is unfortunately rejected, and then PMI further writes on their website that the certification department will address further actions on a case-by-case basis. They do not specifically say what this means, and I personally only know of one person who has drastically failed the audit. He failed because one of his contact persons disagreed with the information that he provided on the application form to PMI. The measure that the PMI certification department took in this case were rather severe. He's now no longer eligible to apply for any PMI application at all. Not PMP, not CAPM, not PMI ACP, none. But remember, this is the only person I know in almost 15 years of teaching to whom this has happened. So don't let it get you down. Instead, I want you to use this story as a motivation to prepare and make certain that this does not happen to you. If you are still feeling overwhelmed or nervous about the audit process, then we have the PMI Exam Audit Kit available on our website. It's a 40-page long ebook. The goal of the Exam Audit Kit is to demystify the audit process for you and provide you with appropriate guidelines, tips, and a set of actions so that the PMI audit process does not become a barrier in attaining your own credential. You learn about the audit process from several different angles and obtain lessons learned from actual survivors. We cover the official PMI audit process in detail and provide you step-by-step instructions. We even provide a sample letter that you can send to your former supervisors before you submit your application. You know what to expect, how to respond, and feel prepared and lose any audit fears that you may still have. If you're interested, then you can find it on the PM PrepCast website under the ebooks. Not only does the PMI Exam Audit Kit include everything you need to know about the PMI audit process, it is relevant for any PMI exam. So whether you are preparing for your CAPM, PMI ACP, PMI RMP, PMP, or any other PMI certification, the Audit Kit has you covered. That much said, here are some takeaways for you and how you should prepare for an eventual audit. Know that there is a 50-50 chance that you can get audited. Be truthful on your application. Stick to the truth. Don't stretch the truth. Be prepared and have everything you write in the application documented, like your diplomas, training certificates, and so on. And this is the most important part. Contact your former employers, supervisors, colleagues, and so on before you submit your application, in which you name them as your contact persons. Tell them that you are applying to this exam and that if you get audited, they would have to review and sign your application. Even better, show them what you have written in your application. Send them a copy of your notes about the projects you worked on for them and ask if they agree with what you have written about your participation. In that way, they can tell you ahead of time that something is maybe not quite right and that you should update your application. That is a positive and proactive way to approach your application and possible audit. And as I said before, worrying about whether or not you get audited because you fit a certain profile is futile and causes you to worry too much. Use that kind of energy instead to properly study for the exam. And that's it for our discussion on the PMI audit process. Until next time.